to you.
All right. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. I've got a little bit of a presentation to go through first. We should get through it pretty quick, and then I'd be happy to take questions. I think if we leave most of the time for questions, that would be best. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. Okay, share the sound. Oh, hang on one second. Needs a permission. I ran through all this.
It seems that we are having a couple of technical difficulties, so if you all will just bear with us for a couple of moments, we will get it worked out.
All right. I'm sorry, Emily, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good to go.
All right, sorry about that. I thought I'd set up all the permissions, but I couldn't do it before I was actually in the let's try that again. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we're
Okay.
good. We can hear you.
All right, good. And can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Again, my name is Tom Moore. I'm Chief of Staff to FEC Commissioner Ellen Weintraub. That's my boss right there. And before that, I was on the City Council of Rockville, Maryland. Want to go through real quickly just what is the Federal Election Commission. It actually doesn't have a very descriptive name. We were created right after Watergate in 1975 by Congress. We do civil enforcement of the nation's campaign finance laws. So we don't do criminal enforcement. That's handled by the Justice Department. We can fine you, we can make you cough up documents and names and that kind of thing, but we can't send you to jail. Only the Department of Justice can do that. One of the things, the two major things that we do that work 100% of the time, work really well, is that we are the ones who collect campaign finance reports from federal candidates. If you're running for the United States House, the US Senate, or for president, everyone has to file with us. And we have a major website, fec.gov, that makes these reports all available to the public. If you've ever seen a story that, President Trump raised this much in the last quarter, or Joe Biden spent this much on bagels in the last quarter, that is from FEC data that was turned in by the candidates. And it is a model throughout the world. We have the most comprehensive reporting and publishing system of anywhere. We don't actually run the elections, though. That is done by states, which is why when you hear that North Carolina is doing this, or Georgia is doing this, or Florida has made this change, that has nothing to do with the Federal Election Commission. Those are run at the state levels. They handle the federal elections, elections for federal candidates, but all the things about voter ID and where the polls are and things like that, they're all handled by each state. And that's unusual. Most countries, the National Election Agency handles all of that. We are an independent agency. There are slots for 6 commissioners. They're each appointed for 6-year terms. They're nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate. We're independent. The president can't tell my boss what to do and can't fire my boss. He can nominate somebody else for her spot once her term was up. But if she murdered a member of her staff, likely me, he could fire her for that. But just if there's some opinion she does that that the president doesn't like, the president cannot fire a commissioner for that. And the way it's kind of an odd balance at the commission. No more than 3 commissioners can be from any one political party. And traditionally that's meant 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans. It always takes 4 votes for the commission to act. And so the idea is if Democrats just can't run over Republicans, if you're a Republican, you want to hold a Democrat accountable for something, you have to convince at least 1 Democrat to do that as well. And the hope was that you prevent one party from just running roughshod over the other with the commission. That has worked. The problem right now is that we have 3 vacancies at the moment. So we've lost our quorum. We can't get 4 votes to do anything. And so we can't take any official action on the most important matters. A new guy came on during the summer, which gave us 4. We were all excited about it. And then another commissioner quit like 30 days later, which was very disappointing. So we're kind of on some things we are kind of stuck right now. If somebody does something illegal and somebody files a complaint about it, our lawyers will take the complaint and they'll work on it and they'll actually grind on it for a couple months, just as they always do. But if it comes to the commission, we can't. The commission can't take any votes on it, can't make any final decisions on stuff. So things that happened a couple of years ago, that's the stuff that's piling up now. And hopefully we'll get 4 soon and we can move ahead with those things. But Commissioner Weintraub's office is still very, very busy. Even when we do have more than 4 commissioners at the commission, there's been a problem for the last dozen years that we do an awful lot of deadlocking. Basically, I'm going to be a little partisan here. 3 Republican commissioners who do not favor aggressive enforcement of the laws as much as the Democrats in the commission tend to, have been voting as a block for the last dozen years. And they basically just voted no on just about all the major issues that have come before the commission. We haven't passed any regulations about super PACs. We haven't passed anything to protect our elections from foreign influence since the 2016 elections. In fact, Commissioner Weintraub wanted to get her colleagues to support a rule that would, foreign corporations that are fully 100% owned by foreign governments, would not be able to spend in our elections, and they blocked it. They wouldn't move forward with that even one bit. So it's it's frustrating on a certain level. We're beating on the law and finding some ways around it, but there's been significant deadlock at the commission for a long time. But we are busy. What I do for the commissioner is I give her strategic and legal support. I run her office. We have 3 attorneys in the office and 3 interns right now. Any kind of decision she needs to make, I help her with that. I don't do enforcement matters. If somebody files a complaint because somebody else has broken the law, my 2 colleagues handle those things, and I handle kind of everything else, whether it's policy issues or questions about it. Running the agency, because she actually has to run the agency itself. I help her with all those things. She likes to say that my job is to make trouble, and that is, I think that's true, and it's a pretty good portfolio. The kinds of issues that we're working on: foreign interference in our elections, people who would spend money to interfere in our elections. Also, people who would accept foreign interference in our elections. That came up very large last year. Things like social media micro-targeting. This is when Facebook allows you to buy an ad that gets a very, very targeted message to a very, very targeted group. And that kind of breaks this First Amendment conversation that we've always had, where if things are broadcast, everybody sees it, people can respond, and then you get this back and forth going. If you've got these extremely targeted messages going to extremely targeted groups, then there's no opportunity for a full conversation on that. And it kind of breaks a lot of the things that have made the First Amendment work well for us for the last 200 years. So the commissioner's been very, very focused on that, and is been writing on that too. She's also been speaking out on the need to wait for election results this year. A lot of states changed their rules to make it easier to vote absentee, but even in states where they didn't, record numbers of people are voting absentee because they don't want to show up in person to vote at the polls this year. And every state was set up to do some absentee balloting, but they are finding it's many multiples of what they've had before. So as a result, some states they're just going to take a couple days to count all their ballots, and it is not because there's fraud going on, and it's not because anybody's doing their job badly or anything like that. It is because the election administrators in all the states, their job is to get the most accurate count possible, and if it takes some time, it takes some time. But we're not used to that. We're used to getting, especially the presidential race, getting those results, on election night. That may not happen this time. And so the commissioner's been trying to kind of, prepare, get the word out and prepare the country and speak on TV and write about this, that we're going to have to wait. And people are getting the message. There's been some polling on this, that people do understand that we may not know who's president on election night. We may not know who controls the Senate on election night. Other things we're working on. We're knocking back false claims about voting by mail. We are knocking back false claims about the election being rigged. We are knocking back false suggestions about whether election day is going to be moved. And looking forward a little bit, we're trying to figure out how the commissioner can be most helpful if this election just goes sideways. If it is all deadlocked and there's all kinds of unsupported claims of fraud, and there are all lawsuits flying around, and there's just if public confidence may suffer. It's a very important job for the commissioner to go out there and tell the public just what is going on and what is the law and what can happen and what can't happen. And we're trying to kind of plot all that out. How can she be most helpful in that? It's the kind of thing she's been working on, the kind of thing she's been doing. This was a op-ed she wrote in the Washington Post on, after Twitter decided not to run any political ads at all. She's like, hey, don't do that. But this is micro-targeting, that's the problem. She wrote in the New York Times about, prepare to wait for election results. We teamed up with a history professor at Princeton to write this. And it's like, throughout American history, we've had to wait quite a while sometimes. We did that in May, and it's been recycled. Like, people keep pulling it up, which was the hope that the message would just kind of get picked up and repeated by people for the next couple months. The commissioner and I together did a law review article on Section 230, which is what gives social media companies immunity from suit if their users do objectionable content. A lot of people would say, like, we got to get rid of that. It's creating bias, it's doing these things. And our article argued that getting rid of Section 230 wouldn't really help, because when it comes to the damage that social media companies are doing to our democracy, because basically all the bad stuff that happens is not illegal. It's all protected speech under the First Amendment. So being able to sue Facebook, that would not help very much. June, we did we sat down with the interns and did this. It was a 66-part tweet storm about, it's been claimed that voting by mail leads to massive corruption and fraud, but what are the facts? And so we did 66 tweets on the facts of this, and this has been great. People have been pulling that out since June, and it got a lot of press attention at the time. But that was a late night. And this is we're also trying to encourage voting any way we can. The Atlanta Hawks they decided to use their stadium for voting, as a polling station, which is great. And the commissioner, we launched a project and tweeted out to all the pro teams and all the sports and anybody who runs a stadium and said like, hey, you should do the same thing. And we were real excited when in Charlotte, they decided to do that. So all the major stadiums in Charlotte were used as early voting sites. It's a little trickier to use a football stadium in November. We'll see how that goes. But that idea actually caught on, not just because of our efforts, a lot of people were working on it, but we were helping with that. And we spent a lot of time knocking back nonsense on Twitter. You know, no, we're not going to stop counting the votes at midnight on election night. And no, we're not going to not have a peaceful transfer of power. If we need one, because we've been throwing away ballots, we count the ballots in this country. So the commission has been very active when there are prominent, very, very public statements made without support by political figures. She pushes back as hard as she can on those things. And that is an office-wide effort to draft them up really quickly. We'll do, the one on the right probably had 30 drafts before it went out, but we try to do that as quickly as possible. And this one, I walk you through just kind of how some of these things kind of blow up. This one was kind of fun. It was from last June 2019. You guys may have seen this when the president said this.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
Do you want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI. If I thought there was something wrong. You go and talk honestly to congressmen. They all do it. They always have. And that's the way it is. It's called Oppo research.
All right. So that was June 12th to June 13th. We scrambled and got this out. And the commissioner said, let me make something 100% clear to the American public and anyone running for office. It is illegal for any person to solicit, accept, or receive anything of value from a foreign national in connection with the U.S. election. And that is just quoting right out of the statute. Something that she's been very kind of useful for in the public conversation is to just state the law. And she is and when she goes on TV, she's the federal official who knows what the law is and will tell you what the law is. And so we wrote the statement up and tweeted it. And if you notice, it got 116,000 likes and 54,000 retweets, along with the very pithy line, "I would not have thought that I needed to say this," which helped juice the entire thing along. I'm very jealous of that line. I write a lot of her pithy lines, but not that one. The Washington Post picked it up the same day, and within a day or two, this is going to sound chaotic, but it's like she ended up on all kinds of news programs, and they pulled up the tweet, and they pulled her on the air, and she just got to say the same thing over and over to a variety of audiences. But the best thing that we liked was from January and the impeachment trial.
The question for the House managers from Senators Stabenow, Cortez Masto, and Rosen to both parties. In June 2019, Ellen Weintraub, then chair of the Federal Election Commission, wrote in a statement that, quote, "It is illegal for any person to solicit, accept, or receive anything of value from a foreign national in connection with the U.S. election. This is not a novel concept. Electoral intervention from foreign governments has been considered unacceptable since the beginnings of our nation," end quote.
So we were pretty happy about that. And it was kind of, our efforts were to, really just try to get the law into the public's hands and explanations of the facts into the public's hands as much as we possibly can. So even while the commission is shut down from doing a lot of its official voting, the commissioner has been really out there using the bully pulpit to take a very chaotic year and try to make it try to iron out as much chaos as we can. And that is what I do for a living. If anybody would like any questions, to ask a question, I'm delighted to take them.
I will get us started. So you talked in the beginning about how historically the Federal Election Commission has been broken up between three Republicans and three Democrats. Has there ever been maybe an independent or someone else? And also, what are the implications of having that split other than gridlock? Like what's the purpose behind that particular representation?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. We actually have an independent on now. He kind of caucuses with the Democrats, and he was suggested for the commission by Harry Reid, who was the Democratic Senate minority leader at the time. So he's strictly an independent, but he gets counted as a Democrat. It's the idea was that the idea to require 4 votes out of the 6 was so that no one party could run over the other. That was the main thing. That's what they were really concerned about when they were constructing the commission. They did not foresee the possibility that half the commission might just stop enforcing the law altogether, and half the commission might stop writing regulations, and half the commission might, just not want to do much of anything. And it is a more complicated thing than I can tell you now, but we've actually recently figured out a strategy to get past that, and it is moving through the courts now, and it's going quite well. So turns out there was a counter move to that was cooked up by the Weintraub office and put out there, and it's we're trying to get past that. But basically, as long as people, this is something that we've noticed. We've seen it at the FEC, but we've noticed it throughout Washington too, is that if you got people running agencies who are not interested in the mission of the agency, there's nothing you can do about that. There's hardly anything you can do about that. There's no rule you can pass telling them to be interested, and you can't make them vote one way or the other. You just have to have people appointed to these commissions and to head agencies and to run for Senate and be president who are interested in the job that they're set to do, which is to run the government, to run their agency, to enforce the law. If the people aren't interested in that, there's no way around that.
Thank you. And I had another question. So after the 2010 Supreme Court case, Citizens United versus the FEC, which was on soft money contributions, what conversations have continued after that in terms of, because it seems like the controversy around soft money hasn't really died off after the ruling, and so I wanted to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, what Citizens United did was it said, look, if you've got individuals have a right to participate politically. If you've got an association of citizens, a bunch of citizens together, they still have those rights. And if those citizens happen to have gathered together in corporate form, that gathering of citizens still has rights. That was basically the rule of Citizens United. And what it's led to is unlimited contributions through super PACs. It didn't actually create super PACs, but it led to that. That's the case that has kind of caught the public's imagination, and for good reason. I mean, all of a sudden we're seeing eye-popping numbers that we hadn't seen before. But there's this case from 1976, Buckley v. Vallejo, that kind of set the stage for it, where they basically said, the Supreme Court basically said, look, if you can't regulate the spending that candidates do, and any regulation that you want to have in any of this is it can't be to level the playing field or anything like that. Yeah, that's totally out of line. All you can do is prevent corruption or the appearance of corruption. And that's a very narrow mandate. I mean, that just doesn't, if you've got billionaires spending money on one side and, public school teachers trying to, take care of 3 kids and run for Congress at the same time, as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, that's great. There's no reason that we should be concerned about that whatsoever. So that was kind of the rule from Buckley, and so all these other cases, including Citizens United, have kind of flowed from that. And yeah, that's the world that we talk about all the time. One of the things we did when I first came to the commissioner's office, and this was kind of fun, was if you think about the Citizens United thing, they didn't say that corporations are people, because corporations, they can't vote, they can't go to jail, they can't, they're not people. But they did say they are association of citizens and they keep all their rights when they associate together. And what Commissioner Weintraub wrote, and she did this in the New York Times, it's kind of had some fun bounces after that, is that, all right, so if you're an association of citizens and you all have the right to give money, then I guess your corporation can give money. But if you're a corporation and all your shareholders are not citizens, like they're foreign nationals or government contractors who aren't allowed to give, or whatever, then they don't have the right. Then your corporation doesn't have the right. And every shareholder owns every bit of the corporation. So if a corporation wants to give $100 to a candidate, and that corporation has shareholders who are foreign nationals, arguably under the principle of Citizens United, they shouldn't be able to give, because if you've got the right to do it, you can do it corporately. But if you're banned from doing it, you are banned from doing it corporately as well. And actually, St. Petersburg, Florida, and then a couple years ago did this, and then Seattle did this in January, which was great. They actually passed this into law, saying if you're a corporation who wants to spend in city elections, you have to prove to us that you're not owned more than a certain amount by foreign nationals. And foreign interests own about a third of all U.S. corporate stock. So no large corporation can really meet that standard. And so the idea is to try to drain corporate money out of these elections by using Citizens United, not working against it. Because Congress can't pass a law to flip Citizens United. You have to, either the Supreme Court would have to flip it, or do a constitutional amendment. And both of those things are not looking very likely right now.
Thank you for explaining that. It's always been a bit of a hazy aspect
Sure.
of my understanding of the FEC. So thank you so much. And we are just about at the end of our time. So I want to thank you, Mr. Moore, for being with us today and for giving us some great insights and expertise into your world and the world of the FEC and everything that you have achieved over the last year, especially during the time of COVID. So thank you so much for being with us today. Next week, we will continue our Lunch and Learn series with Daryl White, Rabbi Judy Schindler, and Reverend Joey Haynes, who will be talking about social injustice, diversity, and equity as part of our Lunch and Learn series. Thank you again, Mr. Moore, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks very much.